At just 13 years old, Tanya Tucker became one of the biggest names in country music with a single song, and for decades, it seemed as if nothing could stop her. She survived scandal, addiction, heartbreak, and one of the wildest reputations Nashville had ever seen, only to reinvent herself again and again. But today, at 67, the woman once known for selling out arenas and living life at full throttle is facing a very different reality, one marked by serious health battles, heartbreaking goodbyes, and difficult decisions about the future she never imagined. So before you see how Tanya Tucker lives now, take a deep breath, because the story behind this country legend is far more emotional than most people realize. Long before she became one of country music's biggest stars, Tanya Tucker was just a little girl growing up in a family that moved from town to town searching for work. Born on October 10, 1958 in Seminole, Texas, she was the youngest of 3 children. Her father, Jesse Melvin Bo Tucker, worked as a heavy equipment operator, meaning the family rarely stayed in one place for long. Much of Tanya's childhood was spent in Wilcox, Arizona, where country music poured from the local radio station every day. Her parents often took the family to concerts featuring legends like Ernest Tubb and Mel Tillis, but no one imagined that the smallest child in the audience would someday join their ranks. In fact, when Tanya first asked her father if he wanted to hear her sing, he jokingly replied that she couldn't sing her way out of a paper sack. Moments later, she proved him completely wrong. Unlike many child stars whose careers were driven by ambitious parents, Tanya was the one pushing everyone else. At only 8 years old, she announced that she wanted to become a country singer. Bo soon realized that his daughter possessed not only an unusually mature voice, but also an extraordinary determination. He began taking her to local performances, and country singer Mel Tillis was so impressed that he repeatedly invited the young girl onto the stage to sing before his audiences. Those early appearances earned her the nickname, the Girl with the Golden Voice, and people who watched her perform were stunned by how much emotion came from someone so young. Even Bo admitted that the family wasn't leading Tanya toward stardom. She was leading them. The family's faith in her eventually brought them to Henderson, Nevada, where Tanya performed regularly while her father searched for opportunities that could change her life. A simple demonstration tape eventually landed on the desk of legendary producer Billy Sherrill, the head of artists and repertoire at Columbia Records. Sherrill immediately recognized something extraordinary and signed the teenager before she had even entered high school. He originally planned for her to record another song, but Tanya insisted on singing Delta Dawn. That decision would alter the course of country music history. Released in May 1972, Delta Dawn became an instant success, reaching number 6 on Billboard's Hot Country Singles chart, while also crossing into the pop charts. Columbia Records initially tried to hide Tucker's age, fearing audiences might not accept such emotionally mature performances from a 13-year-old. The strategy quickly collapsed as the truth spread, but instead of hurting her career, it made the story even more remarkable. America couldn't believe that a middle school student was delivering heartbreak with the conviction of someone decades older. The song earned Tucker her first Grammy nomination while she was only 14 years old, making her one of the youngest artists ever nominated in a major country category. Success arrived at breathtaking speed. Within a year, Tanya followed with What's Your Mama's Name?, her first #1 country hit, then quickly added Blood Red and Goin' Down and Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone. While most teenagers were worrying about school dances or driver's licenses, Tucker was headlining concerts across America and becoming one of country music's brightest new stars. Yet beneath the applause, her father never forgot the warning he had given her years earlier. He had told his daughter that life would be harder, because she was both a girl and a child, and that audiences would demand more from her than they ever expected from anyone else. At the time, neither of them could have imagined just how true those words would become. By the time Tanya Tucker reached her late teens, she had already accomplished what most country singers spend a lifetime chasing. She had multiple #1 records, sold-out concerts, and a reputation as one of Nashville's most fearless young stars. But fame came with a cost that few people outside her inner circle truly understood. She spent much of her adolescence on the road, often performing 2 shows a night, then returning alone to hotel rooms after thousands of cheering fans had disappeared. Years later, Tucker admitted that the loneliness became overwhelming. "Loneliness got me into it," she said, explaining how alcohol slowly became part of her everyday life before she was even out of her teens. As the 1970s came to an end, Tucker deliberately reinvented herself. Rather than remaining the sweet teenage country singer America had embraced, she leaned into a bolder image that matched her independent personality. Her 1978 album TNT blended country with rock influences and featured a provocative cover that shocked many traditional country fans. While the album eventually earned a gold certification, it also divided audiences and critics. Looking back decades later, Tucker admitted that the crossover experiment became one of the biggest regrets of her career. She believed the record company promoted the controversy better than the music itself, and when the project failed to meet expectations, it left her trapped in lawsuits and business disputes that drained both her finances and confidence. At the same time, Tucker's private life became front-page news almost as often as her music. Her high-profile romance with country superstar Glenn Campbell began in 1981, and together they became one of the most talked-about couples in entertainment. Both possessed enormous talent, but both were also struggling with personal demons. Their relationship was passionate, unpredictable, and frequently chaotic, fueled by the pressures of fame and substance abuse. After their breakup in 1982, Tucker retreated to Nashville, while Campbell later described the relationship as the most turbulent period of his life. Tucker, however, never stopped referring to him as the love of her life, a feeling she continued expressing decades later after his death in 2017. Meanwhile, the tabloids seemed far more interested in Tucker's nightlife than her music. She openly admitted that after moving to Los Angeles in 1978, she embraced the city's party scene, saying she could stay up longer, drink more, and kick the biggest ass in town. Those headlines gradually overshadowed her remarkable achievements as an artist. Looking back, many observers noted a double standard. Male outlaw country legends such as Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson were often celebrated for their rebellious lifestyles, while Tucker was criticized for displaying the very same behavior. In 2019, the New York Times questioned whether history had judged Tucker more harshly simply because she was a woman. Producer and songwriter Brandi Carlile argued that her generation deserved to celebrate Tucker's legacy with the same respect given to her male counterparts. By the early 1980s, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Record sales declined sharply, radio stations stopped embracing her new releases, and by 1983, many of her singles struggled even to reach the country top 40. For the first time since she was a young teenager, Tanya Tucker faced something she had never experienced before: the frightening possibility that her extraordinary career might already be coming to an end. Many artists who experience a collapse in popularity never recover, but Tanya Tucker refused to let the darkest chapter of her career become the final one. After years of declining record sales, failed crossover attempts, and personal struggles, her family finally confronted her in 1988 and persuaded her to seek treatment at the Betty Ford Center. It was not an easy decision, but it became one of the turning points that changed the direction of her life. More importantly, Tucker had already begun rebuilding her career before the headlines caught up. In 1986, she signed with Capitol Records, and almost immediately, country radio welcomed her back with One Love at a Time, which climbed to number 3 on the country charts. It was the clearest sign yet that audiences had not forgotten the little girl who once stunned America with Delta Dawn. The real breakthrough came with the album Girls Like Me in 1986. The record produced 4 top 10 country singles and reminded listeners why Tucker had become a star in the first place. Rather than trying to imitate pop trends again, she embraced a polished but unmistakably country sound that fit both her voice and her age. The momentum continued over the next several years. In 1988, she celebrated 3 number-1 country hits: If It Don't Come Easy, Strong Enough to Bend, and I Won't Take Less Than Your Love, a collaboration with Paul Davis and Paul Overstreet. Between 1988 and 1990, Tucker scored 8 consecutive top 10 singles, one of the strongest runs of her entire career, while several of her albums earned gold certification from the Recording Industry Association of America for selling more than 500,000 copies. The industry's attitude toward Tucker also began to change. In 1990, CMT named her Female Video Artist of the Year, and just 1 year later, she achieved one of the greatest honors of her career when the Country Music Association named her Female Vocalist of the Year. Ironically, Tucker was unable to attend the ceremony because she had just given birth to her second child. While she was celebrating professional success, she was also embracing motherhood, proving that she could balance family life with one of country music's busiest careers. Throughout the early 1990s, songs like Down to My Last Teardrop, Without You, What Do I Do With Me, and Two Sparrows in a Hurricane became signature recordings, introducing Tucker to a new generation of country fans who had not witnessed her remarkable rise as a teenager. What makes Tucker's story even more remarkable is that her greatest recognition did not end with the 1990s. After her commercial success slowed again, she quietly continued recording and touring, refusing to disappear from the stage. Then, after 17 years without releasing an album of original material, everything changed once more. In 2019, singer-songwriter Brandi Carlile and producer Shooter Jennings convinced Tucker to record While I'm Livin', an album many critics immediately described as one of the finest works of her career. The project was more than a comeback record. It was a reassessment of her entire legacy. Critics who had once focused on scandal were suddenly celebrating her artistry, honesty, and unmistakable voice. The greatest surprise arrived on January 26, 2020, when, at 61 years old, Tanya Tucker finally won her first Grammy Awards, nearly 48 years after releasing Delta Dawn. She received 2 Grammys for Best Country Album, While I'm Livin', and Best Country Song, Bring My Flowers Now. For many fans, the moment felt long overdue. It was proof that although fame can fade and careers can rise and fall, genuine talent has a way of finding its audience again, even if it takes nearly half a century. Today, Tanya Tucker's life looks nothing like the whirlwind that once defined her career. At 67 years old, she still calls Nashville home, living in a condominium overlooking the city's famous Lower Broadway, just steps away from Bridgestone Arena. Ironically, despite being so close to one of the city's biggest concert venues, she recently had to miss a performance by one of her favorite singers, Andrea Bocelli. The reason had nothing to do with a busy schedule. It was because she was simply too sick to leave home. After battling Lyme disease and the Epstein-Barr virus in recent years, Tucker admits her body no longer allows her to do the things she once took for granted. Looking back, she said that if the concert had happened 20 years earlier, No one could have stopped her from being there. Health has become one of the biggest factors shaping her future. After more than 50 years on the road, Tucker has begun questioning whether she wants to continue touring nearly 200 days a year. She still loves performing and says nothing compares to the connection she feels with a live audience, but she also believes fans deserve to see her at her best. If illness prevents her from giving everything she has on stage, she would rather step back than disappoint the people who have supported her for decades. It is a striking contrast to the fearless young woman who once seemed determined to perform no matter the cost. Instead of slowing down completely, Tucker is redirecting her energy toward new creative ambitions. She has spoken about recording tribute albums, making a duets project, producing a travel television series, and even creating a coffee table book celebrating her late father, Bo Tucker, and the wisdom he shared throughout her life. More than ever, she says her faith has become her anchor. Tucker openly credits God for carrying her through every triumph and setback, believing that no human effort alone could explain her remarkable journey. The rebellious outlaw who once made headlines for her wild lifestyle now speaks just as passionately about gratitude, purpose, and knowing when it is time to embrace a new chapter. If there is one thing that defines Tanya Tucker's life today, it is perspective. After spending more than 5 decades in the spotlight, she has learned that success means very little without the people who shared the journey. In recent years, she has experienced a series of heartbreaking losses that have reshaped the way she looks at life. One of the deepest wounds came with the deaths of her parents, especially her father, Bo Tucker, the man who believed in her before anyone else and managed her career from the very beginning. She once admitted that after losing him in 2006, she never felt she could trust anyone in quite the same way again. The grief became even heavier after her mother's passing, sending her into a severe depression that she later spoke about publicly. During that difficult period, Tucker suffered another devastating setback. What began as a routine skin treatment turned into a medical nightmare when complications left her with second- and third-degree burns across her face, inside her nose, and even down into her lungs. The injury permanently affected her voice, forcing her to fight for notes that had once come effortlessly. She revealed that she spent nearly $500,000 seeking treatment, trying medications, and even undergoing shock therapy while searching for relief from depression. Yet even in the middle of that struggle, she found the strength to record new music. Tucker later said that music had ultimately saved her life, giving her purpose when she needed it most. The losses have not stopped. In 2026, Tucker publicly mourned 2 women who had been part of her life for decades. Her longtime assistant and one of her closest friends, T. Martin, passed away after years of traveling beside her on tour buses and across Europe. Just days later, country legend Jeannie Seely also died at the age of 85. Tucker shared that she was able to speak to Seely by phone one last time before her passing, calling her part of my DNA and saying that a piece of herself left with her friend. Perhaps that explains why one of Tucker's most meaningful songs today is Bring My Flowers Now. Its message is simple. Don't wait until someone is gone to tell them they matter. That philosophy has become her legacy as much as her music. After surviving fame, addiction, illness, heartbreak, and unimaginable loss, Tanya Tucker no longer measures success by awards or chart positions. Instead, she hopes people will remember her as someone who sang with honesty, loved deeply, and reminded others to cherish the people still standing beside them before it is too late. Tanya Tucker's journey proves that real legends aren't defined by perfect lives. They're defined by the strength to keep moving forward when everything seems to fall apart. From becoming a country music sensation at just 13 years old to surviving addiction, heartbreak, health battles, and heartbreaking loss, She has continued to stand with the same fearless spirit that first captured America's attention more than 5 decades ago. What do you think is the most remarkable chapter of Tanya Tucker's life? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next look at the lives of music's greatest legends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.